The rain falls against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the 32nd floor, each droplet catching the neon glow of Tokyo's midnight pulse. I watch the city breathe below me, unaware that somewhere in its maze of steel and glass, two people I once called my world are lying awake in separate beds, their perfect marriage crumbling like wet paper. My name is Yuna Asano. I am 28 years old, and I have forgotten how to cry. The intercom buzzes. Ms. Asano, your 9 o'clock is here. My assistant's voice cuts through the silence like a blade through silk. I straighten my jacket charcoal gray, tailored to perfection, armor disguised as fashion. Send them in. I don't turn around immediately. Let them see the city first. Let them feel small against the backdrop of my success. It's a psychological trick I learned from watching predators circle their prey. The footsteps behind me are hesitant, nervous. Good. Thank you for seeing me on such short notice. I really didn't know where else to go. The voice stops my breath. Familiar like a half-remembered song, like the echo of laughter that used to fill summer afternoons when we were 17 and believed in forever. I turn slowly, professionally, the way I've practiced 1,000 times in the mirror. And there she is. Saki Minami sits across from my desk, her hands folded in her lap, like a child waiting to be scolded. She looks smaller than I remember, fragile in a way that doesn't suit the girl who once stood up to bullies for me, who painted my nails electric blue because I was too scared to ask my mother. Her wedding ring catches the light as she fidgets, and I notice how it slides loose on her finger, as if she's been losing weight. She doesn't recognize me. Not yet. 5 years have carved me into someone new. Where once there was softness, now there are sharp angles. Where there was trust, suspicion. Where there was the girl who believed in best friends forever, there is now a woman who charges $600 an hour to destroy marriages. Mrs. Mikino, I say, letting her married name roll off my tongue like poison disguised as honey. I understand you're seeking representation in a divorce proceeding. She nods, still not meeting my eyes. It's complicated. Everything always is. I lean back in my chair, studying her face. Time has been less kind to Saki than it has to me. There are shadows under her eyes that makeup can't quite hide. A tightness around her mouth that speaks of words swallowed and screams buried deep. Her designer handbag, I recognize it. Hermes. The kind that costs more than most people make in 6 months, sits forgotten at her feet, like an abandoned prop. Why don't you start from the beginning? She takes a shaky breath. I married my husband 6 years ago. I thought I knew him. But lately, I've been finding things. Documents, bank statements. He's been hiding money, moving assets. I think he's preparing to leave me with nothing. The irony is so sharp I can taste blood. I keep my expression neutral, professional, inside. Something dark and patient stirs to life. What's your husband's name, Haruto? Haruto Mikino. There it is. The name that used to taste like promises on my lips, that I haven't spoken aloud in for years. Hearing it from her mouth feels like swallowing glass. I stand and walk to the window again, buying myself time to breathe. The rain has stopped, leaving the city washed clean and gleaming. How many nights did I stand at windows like this, watching the world move forward while I remained frozen in the wreckage he left behind? Mrs. Mikino, before we proceed, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. She shifts in her chair. Of course. Have you ever heard the name Yuna Asano before? The silence stretches between us like a taut wire. I can feel her confusion, her mind working to place a name that should be as familiar as her own heartbeat. Finally, she speaks. No. I have. I turn to face her fully, and for the first time since she walked in, I smile. It's not a kind smile. 6 years ago, your husband was engaged to someone else. Her name was Yuna Asano. Do you know what happened to her? Saki's face has gone pale. Her hand moves unconsciously to her throat, a gesture I remember from when we We're children, and she was caught in a lie. That was different. That was what? Saki. The sound of her name from my lips hits her like a physical blow. She jerks backward in her chair, her eyes wide with recognition that's coming. Too late. Yuna? The word comes out as a whisper, a prayer, a curse. Oh my God. Yuna, is that really you? I don't answer immediately. Instead, I walk back to my desk and open a file thick, meticulously organized, the kind of file that can destroy life, her life, his life, maybe my own, if I'm not careful. 6 years ago, I begin, my voice steady and cold. Yuna Asano was a 22-year-old literature student at Keio University. She was engaged to a charming man named Haruto Makino, who convinced her to co-sign loans for his business ventures. She trusted him completely. Why wouldn't she? They were going to be married. Saki's breathing has become shallow, rapid. I can see her pulse jumping in her throat. 1 week before their wedding, Haruto disappeared. The loans, 3 million yen worth of them, all fell to Yuna. She lost her apartment, her savings, her chance at graduation. Her credit was destroyed. Her family disowned her, convinced she was a fool who'd been seduced by a con man. I pause, letting the words sink in like stones dropped in still water. But the interesting thing is, Haruto didn't really disappear. He just moved on to someone else. Someone who had been Yuna's best friend since childhood. Someone who had access to all of Yuna's personal information, her social security number, her financial records. Someone who could have helped orchestrate the perfect con. No. Saki's voice breaks on the word. No, it wasn't like that. I didn't. I loved you like a sister, Yuna. You have to believe me. Do I? I sit back down, steepling my fingers. Because here's what I've learned in my years practicing law, Saki. When someone benefits from another person's destruction, when they step seamlessly into the life that person lost, questions arise. The room feels smaller now, the air thicker. Outside, the city continues its relentless rhythm, unaware that inside this glass tower, 2 women are finally having the conversation that should have happened 6 years ago. Tell me about your wedding, I say softly. Where did you have it? The Imperial Hotel. She whispers. The same venue Haruto had booked for us. How romantic. And your honeymoon. Santorini. Also the same. How wonderfully economical of him. Almost like he just transferred the reservations. Saki is crying now, silent tears that streak her carefully applied makeup. But I feel nothing. The part of me that would have comforted her, that would have reached across the desk and taken her hand, died somewhere in a tiny apartment in Shibuya, while I ate convenience store ramen and ignored calls from debt collectors. I didn't know, she says. I swear to you, I didn't know about the loans, about what he'd done to you. But you knew he'd been engaged to someone else. He said you'd broken up months earlier. He said you'd moved away, that you wanted nothing to do with him. I tried to contact you, to make sure you were okay, but your phone was disconnected. Your family said you'd moved to Osaka and didn't want to be found. I laugh, and the sound is sharp enough to cut. My family, yes, they were very helpful in making sure I disappeared completely, weren't they? Shame is a powerful motivator, Saki. When your daughter becomes the cautionary tale everyone whispers about, it's easier to pretend she never existed. I looked for you, she insists. I tried to find you for months. I was worried, but not worried enough to postpone your fairy tale wedding. The words hang in the air like smoke. Saki covers her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. For a moment, I almost feel something that might be pity. Almost. Do you want to know what happened to Yuna Asano after she lost everything? Saki doesn't answer, but I continue anyway. She worked 3 jobs to pay off debts that weren't really hers. She studied law at night, using textbooks she stole from the university library because she couldn't afford her own. She lived in a 6-tatami room with no heating, where the walls were so thin she could hear her neighbors' entire lives playing out, like a depressing drama. I stand again, pacing now, the words pouring out like blood from a wound that never properly healed. She was so hungry sometimes that she'd go to hotel lobbies just to eat the free mints at the reception desk. She sold everything she owned, including her grandmother's pearl necklace, the one you said would make me look like a princess on my wedding day. Do you remember that? Saki, stop. The word comes out broken, desperate. She became good at lying because the truth was too pathetic to share. She told people she was fine, that she was choosing this life, that she was strong and independent. But every night, she'd lie awake wondering why the two people she loved most in the world had chosen to destroy her. The silence that follows is deafening. Outside, a helicopter passes, its spotlight briefly illuminating the rain-streaked windows before moving on. That woman, that broken, desperate, abandoned woman, she died exactly 4 years ago. Do you know how? Saki shakes her head, not trusting her voice. She died the day I passed the bar exam. The day I realized that the law wasn't just about justice, it was about power. And power, properly wielded, could reshape everything. I walk around the desk now, slowly, deliberately. Saki shrinks back as I approach, but she doesn't run. Maybe she knows it's too late for that. I became very good at what I do. Saki, exceptionally good. I specialized in high-conflict divorces, the kind where people have money to hide and secrets to bury. I learned how to find things people don't want found, how to trace assets through shell companies and offshore accounts, how to turn a cheating spouse's own greed against them. I stopped directly in front of her chair, looking down at the woman who was once my closest friend. And I waited. I waited for the day when your perfect marriage would crack, when you would need exactly the kind of help that only someone like me could provide. You planned this? Her voice is barely audible. I planned for every possible future, Saki, including the one where you were innocent, where you were another one of Haruto's victims, where we could be allies instead of enemies. I returned to my seat, smoothing my skirt with practiced precision. But we both know that's not the case, don't we? She doesn't answer, but her silence is confession enough. Would you like to see the evidence I've compiled over the past 3 years? I open my laptop and turn it toward her. On the screen are photographs, documents, bank records, a timeline of deception so intricate it could be mistaken for art. This is a record of every asset your husband has hidden, every shell company he's created, every lie he's told. But more interestingly, it's also a record of your involvement. Her face crumbles as she recognizes her own handwriting on some of the documents, her own signature on others. The Cayman Islands account, I continue, opened with information that only someone with intimate knowledge of my personal details could have provided. The timing of certain transfers, always just before major events in your relationship with Haruto. The way you've been slowly, quietly, building your own escape route over the past 2 years. I was protecting myself, she whispers. Were you? Or were you preparing to do to Haruto what the two of you did to me? The question lands like a blade between ribs. Saki looks up at me, and for the first time since she walked into my office, I see something other than confusion or guilt in her eyes. I see calculation. You don't understand, she says, and her voice is steadier now, stronger. You think you know everything, but you don't. Haruto isn't the man you think he is. He isn't the man either of us thought he was. Enlighten me. She takes a deep breath, composing herself with visible effort. When she speaks again, it's with the voice of someone who's been practicing this conversation in her mind for years. The night before your wedding, the wedding that never happened, I went to Haruto's apartment. I was bringing him his boutonniere, and I had a key because I'd been helping with wedding preparations. I walked in on him with another woman. Not just any woman. His business partner, Maya Ishida, the one who supposedly provided the startup capital for his company. My expression doesn't change, but something cold spreads through my chest. They were talking about you like you were a business transaction, about how much they could extract before cutting you loose, about how Maya had fronted the money for the loans, using your information to make it untraceable back to them, about how they'd done it before to other women. She pauses, gauging my reaction. I give her nothing. I should have told you immediately. I should have run straight to you and shown you what he really was. But I was 23 and terrified. And when I confronted him, he said, she swallows hard. He said if I exposed him, he'd make sure everyone knew I was involved, that I'd go to prison as an accessory. So you made a deal with the devil instead. I made a stupid, selfish choice. When he suggested we stage your breakup, make it look like you'd left him, I thought it would be cleaner, less painful for you in the long run. I thought if you believed he'd simply stopped loving you, it would hurt less than knowing you'd been systematically destroyed. The laugh that escapes me is sharp and humorless. Less painful. How thoughtful of you. And then he said he loved me, that he'd only been using you to get to me, because I was the one he'd wanted all along. I was young and stupid and flattered, and I believed him. I thought I was saving you from a monster and winning my soulmate in the process. Romantic. I realized too late that I hadn't saved you from him. I'd just taken your place. Everything he did to you, he eventually did to me. The emotional manipulation, the financial control, the isolation from friends and family. By the time I understood what I'd really signed up for, I was trapped just like you had been. She reaches into her purse and pulls out a small recording device. For the past 6 months, I've been documenting everything, every conversation, every threat, every admission of what he did to you and how many others there have been. I came here today not just because I need a divorce lawyer, Yuna. I came here because I knew that if anyone could help me bring him down completely, it would be you. I stare at the recorder, then at her face. The girl I once knew is still there, hidden behind years of careful masks and calculated survival. Why should I believe you? Because, she says, and her voice breaks again, but this time with something. That might be hope, because you're the only person left who knows who I used to be. Before I became this, before I became someone I don't recognize in the mirror. The room falls silent except for the soft hum of air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic far below. I take the recorder, turning it over in my hands. Such a small thing to hold so much potential destruction. There's something else, Saki says quietly. The reason I waited so long to leave, even after I knew what he was. Maya Ishida, she's been blackmailing both of us. She has recordings of conversations, photos, documents that could send us all to prison if they came out the wrong way. But she made a mistake recently. She tried to expand her operation, and she got sloppy. I look up sharply. What kind of mistake? She's been using the same playbook with other couples. There's a woman in Yokohama who's been asking questions, trying to trace what happened to her sister. Maya got nervous and tried to clean house, but she didn't realize I'd been watching, documenting, preparing. Saki leans forward, and for a moment, she looks like the girl who used to stay up all night with me planning our futures. I know where the bodies are buried. Yuna. All of them? Maya, Haruto. The shell companies, the other victims. I can give you everything you need to destroy them both and help their victims get justice. And what do you want in return? I want to disappear. She says simply, I want to take whatever's left of my life and go somewhere they can't find me. Start over. The way you did. Become someone new. I set the recorder down on my desk and lean back, studying her face. The calculation is still there, but underneath it, I see something I recognize, the same desperate hunger for freedom that drove me to reinvent myself. From the ashes of my old life, there's one thing I need to know, I say. That night when you found them together, When you made the choice to stay silent and take my place, was any part of you glad? Even for a moment? The question hangs between us like a sword. Saki's face goes through a series of emotions: shame, regret, defiance, and finally, devastating honesty. Double quotes, yes, she whispers. For just a moment, yes. I was glad it was happening to you instead of me. I was glad I was the one he chose, even knowing what that choice cost. I've hated myself for that moment every day since. It's the answer I expected, but it still hits like a physical blow. The last romantic illusion I'd held about our friendship that her betrayal had been purely circumstantial, purely altruistic crumbles to dust, but somehow her honesty makes what comes next easier. All right, I say, standing up, I'll represent you. Relief floods her features. Thank you. I know I don't deserve. You don't. I cut her off. You don't deserve my help, or my forgiveness, or anything else from me. But Haruto and Maya Ishida deserve to burn, and you're the match I need to light the fire. Over the next 3 weeks, I learned things about betrayal that make my own experience seem quaint by comparison. The recordings Saki has collected reveal a network of fraud that stretches back nearly a decade, with victims scattered across Japan and beyond. Haruto and Maya have refined their system to a deadly art. Identify vulnerable women with access to credit or family money. Seduce them with promises of love and partnership. Then systematically strip them of everything before discarding them and moving on. I am victim number 7. Saki is number 8. There have been 3 more since her. The woman in Yokohama that Saki mentioned her sister was number 4. She killed herself 2 years ago, unable to live with the shame and financial ruin. Her family still doesn't know why. As I build the case, I find myself working 18-hour days, driven by something that goes deeper than professional obligation or personal revenge. Each new victim I uncover feels like another piece of my own shattered heart. Another reason why letting this continue is unacceptable. Saki and I meet regularly in my office, always after hours, always in secret. The intimacy of our shared purpose creates a strange echo of our old friendship, but neither of us acknowledges it directly. We are allies now by necessity, not choice. The divorce papers will be filed tomorrow. I tell her on a Thursday evening as rain patters against the windows. Haruto will be served at his office in front of his entire staff. The criminal charges will follow within the hour. She nods, but I can see the fear in her eyes. What if he runs? He has resources we don't know about, connections. He won't. Run? I say with certainty. Men like Haruto don't run. They believe too much in their own invincibility. He'll fight, and when he fights, he'll expose himself completely. And Maya is already exposed. I've been in contact with the Financial Crimes Unit. They've been building a case against her for months, but they needed the missing piece that tied her to Haruto's operations. Your recordings provided. That Saki is quiet for a long moment, staring out at the city lights. Do you ever wonder who we would have been if none of this had happened? Every day, I admit. And it's the first truly personal thing I've said to her since she walked back into my life. I keep thinking about that summer when we were 16, when we stayed up all night talking about the future, making those stupid promises about being each other's maid of honor, and naming our children after each other. I remember we'd been lying on the roof of her parents' house, watching meteors streak across the sky, convinced we could see our entire lives laid out in the stars. We were children, I say. We believed in forever because we'd never learned that people could simply stop loving you. Is that what you think happened? That I stopped loving you? The question catches me off guard, but I consider it seriously. I think you love the idea of me. The version of me that made you feel good about yourself. When that version threatened your chance at happiness, you chose yourself. It's what most people do. That's a very clinical way to put it. I'm a very clinical person now. She turns to look at me directly. Are you happy, Yuna, with who you've become? It's such a simple question, but I find myself unable to answer immediately. Am I happy? I'm successful, respected, financially secure. I have power and influence and the means to help people seek justice. But happiness? I'm satisfied. I say finally. I built something meaningful from the wreckage of my old life. That has to be enough, does it, though? Before I can respond, my phone buzzes with a text from my investigator. The message is simple but electrifying. He took the bait. Meeting set for tomorrow, 8 p.m. Shibuya warehouse. Recording equipment in place. I show the message to Saki, watching, as understanding dawns in her eyes. This is it, she says. This is it. The warehouse in Shibuya smells like rust and broken dreams. All exposed pipes and flickering fluorescent lights that cast harsh shadows on concrete walls. It's the kind of place where bad decisions come to die, which makes it perfect for what? We're planning. I arrive first, checking the recording equipment one final time. Everything needs to be perfect admissible in court, clear enough for jury members to understand, damning enough to ensure conviction. I've spent 6 years preparing for this moment, even if I didn't know exactly what it would look like. Saki arrives next, looking pale but determined. She's wearing a wire, though the backup systems hidden throughout the warehouse make it almost redundant. Still, redundancy is how cases are won. Are you ready for this? I ask her. I have to be. Haruto arrives exactly on time, because of course he does. Even now, even walking into what he doesn't yet realize is a trap. He carries himself with the confidence of a man who has never faced real consequences for his actions. He looks good. I hate that I notice this. Hate that some traitorous part of my brain still responds to the sharp line of his jaw, the way his dark hair falls across his forehead. 6 years of marriage to Saki have been kind to him. He's filled out slightly, looks prosperous and settled. Saki, he says, and his voice carries that same warm tone that once made me believe I was the center of his universe. I got your message. This is all very dramatic. Even for you. We need to talk, she says, and her voice only trembles slightly. About everything. About what happens next. I told you, the divorce doesn't have to be ugly. You'll be comfortable. I'm not a monster. The casual cruelty of it, the assumption that she should be grateful for his generosity, makes my teeth clench. I watch from my position behind a concrete pillar, every instinct screaming at me to reveal myself, to confront him directly. But this has to play out exactly as we planned. Comfortable isn't enough, Saki says. Not anymore. I know about the others, Haruto. All of them. His expression doesn't change. But something shifts in his posture, a subtle tension that suggests he's recalculating the situation. Others, Saki. I think the stress of the separation is making you paranoid. Maya told me about the woman in Kyoto, about Yuna Asano, about the whole system you two built. Now he reacts, taking a step closer to her with the predatory focus eye. Remember too well. Maya says a lot of things when she's drunk. You shouldn't listen to her. Should I listen to you instead? The way I did 6 years ago when you convinced me that destroying my best friend was an act of mercy. The words hang in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. Haruto is silent for a long moment, and when he speaks again, his voice has lost its warmth entirely. Your best friend was collateral damage, Saki. An acceptable loss in pursuit of a greater good. I thought you understood that. The greater good being your bank account. He laughs, and the sound sends ice through my veins. The greater good being US being the life we built together. Did you think any of this was free? Did you think success just falls from the sky? I thought it came from hard work and talent, not from ruining innocent people. Innocent. He spits the word like a curse. There are no innocent people, Saki. There are only people who haven't been properly motivated to show their true nature. Yuna Asano wasn't innocent, she was naive. Stupid enough to trust someone she barely knew with her entire financial future. My hands are shaking now. Fury building in my chest like a pressure cooker about to explode. It takes every ounce of self-control I possess to remain hidden. She trusted you because she loved you. She thought she loved me. There's a difference. Real love requires knowledge, understanding, shared experience. What she felt was infatuation based on a fantasy I created for her. When that fantasy served its purpose, it had to end. And what about me? Was what I felt also just infatuation? Haruto considers this question with the clinical detachment of a scientist examining a lab specimen. Initially, yes, but you proved to be more adaptable than she was, more willing to embrace the moral flexibility that our lifestyle requires. Our lifestyle. Saki's voice is flat now, drained of emotion. You mean your crimes. I mean our success. Look round you, Saki. Look at the life we've built. The apartment, the cars, the respect we command. Do you think any of that would have been possible if we'd limited ourselves to conventional morality? I think it would have been possible if we'd limited ourselves to conventional legality. He moves closer still, and I can see the exact moment. He decides that charm isn't going to work anymore. His whole demeanor shifts, becomes something harder and more dangerous. You're being ungrateful, he says quietly. After everything I've given you, everything I've made you, this is how you repay me. By threatening to destroy our life over ancient history. There are women who are still paying for what we did to them. There's a family in Yokohama who lost their daughter because of us. Because of their daughter's weakness. Not because of us. We provided an opportunity. What people chose to do with that opportunity was their decision. The casual dismissal of a human life as weakness is the final straw. I step out from behind the pillar, my footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. Hello, Haruto. The effect is immediate and electric. He spins around, his face cycling through surprise, recognition, and calculation in the space of a heartbeat. For just a moment, I see something that might be genuine shock, perhaps even fear. Yuna. My name in his mouth sounds different then. It used to, stripped of false affection and colored instead with wariness. This is unexpected, is it? You always were better at short-term planning than long-term consequences. He recovers quickly. I'll give him that. Within seconds, the charming mask is back in place. Though it sits less naturally than it once did. You look well. Success suits you. Prison orange will suit you better. That gets a reaction of slight, tightening around his eyes that suggests he's beginning to understand exactly how much trouble he's in. This is quite the reunion, he says, looking between Saki and me, the two women in my life, working together at last. How touching. The two women whose lives you destroyed. I correct. There's a difference. Destroyed. Saki seems quite comfortable in her destruction. And you, well, you've clearly done quite well for yourself despite our complications. As if fraud and betrayal and the systematic destruction of someone's future were mere inconveniences. I survived despite you, not because of you. There's a distinction that matters to some of us. Survival, success, what's the difference? The strong adapt, the weak perish. It's the most natural law in the world. I take another step closer, close enough now to see the fine lines around. His eyes, the slight softness in his jaw that speaks to comfortable living. The strong also face consequences for their actions. Another natural law. Consequences? He laughs again, but there's less confidence in it now. What consequences? It's your word against mine, and I'm a respected businessman with an impeccable reputation. You're a divorce lawyer with a history of emotional instability. Emotional instability. Is that how you've been framing what happened to me? How else would you frame a woman who disappeared completely after a simple breakup? Who abandoned her education, her family, her entire life over a relationship that lasted less than 2 years? The words are designed to hurt, to make me doubt myself, to reduce me once again to the broken girl he left behind. But I'm not that girl anymore, and his weapons no longer have the power to wound me. I frame it as a woman who discovered that the people she trusted most were systematically destroying her, and who chose to disappear rather than let them finish the job. Dramatically put, but ultimately irrelevant. Even if everything you believe happened actually happened, which I'm not conceding, what exactly do you think you can prove? Financial documents can be forged. Conversations can be taken out of context. Without concrete evidence, you mean evidence like this? I pull out my phone and play a recording his voice. Clear and unmistakable from earlier in the conversation. Real. Love requires knowledge, understanding, shared experience. What she felt was infatuation based on a fantasy I created for her. When that fantasy served its purpose, it had to end. His face goes very still, very careful. The charming mask finally slips completely, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. Recording a private conversation without consent is illegal. Not when one party consents. Saki says, speaking for the first time since I revealed myself. I consented to recording this conversation, and not when there's reasonable suspicion of ongoing criminal activity, I add, which there is. The silence that follows is thick with tension and the weight of years of buried secrets finally surfacing. Haruto looks between us, and I can see his mind working, calculating odds, looking for escape routes. What do you want? He asks finally, and his voice has lost all pretense of warmth or charm. Justice, I say simply, justice. He tastes the word like something bitter. Justice for what? For loving someone and then changing my mind? For building a successful life? For making choices that benefited me instead of someone else? Justice for fraud? For identity theft? For the systematic destruction of innocent people's lives for financial gain? For the woman in Yokohama who killed herself because of what you did to her? I never met any woman in Yokohama. No, but Maya did. Using your methods, your contacts, your playbook. You might not have held the knife, but you forged it. He's quiet for a long moment, staring at the concrete floor as if it might offer him some escape from the trap that's closing round him. How long have you been planning this? He asks. 6 years? I answer honestly. From the moment I realized that surviving wasn't enough, that I needed to make sure it never happened to anyone else. And you? He turns to Saki. How long have you been planning to betray me? Since the night I found you with Maya, she says. Since I realized I hadn't escaped your trap, I just stepped deeper into it. He nods slowly, as if this confirms something he's suspected for a while. So what happens now? You turn me into the police. I go to prison, and you both get to feel righteous about your revenge. It's not revenge, I say. Revenge would be personal. This is justice. Systematic, legal, public justice. And you think that will fix everything? You think it will give you back the years you lost, the innocence you sacrificed, the version of yourself that I supposedly destroyed? The question hits deeper than I expected. Because the truth is, I don't know if it will fix anything. I don't know if justice can restore the pieces of me that were shattered, or bring back the woman in Yokohama who will never see another sunrise. But I do know this. It will stop you. And that's enough for now. Haruto's eyes narrow, searching for a crack in my resolve, a weakness he can exploit like he always has. But he finds none. The Yuna he knew, the one who trusted too easily, who loved too fiercely, is gone, replaced by someone forged in the fire of his betrayal. You think you've won, he says, his voice low and dangerous. You think this little performance ends with me in handcuffs and you as the hero of your own tragic story. But you're forgetting something, Yuna. The world doesn't care about your version of justice. It cares about power, money, influence. And I have all three in spades. Not anymore. Saki interjects, her voice steady now, cutting through the tension like a knife. You've been careless, Haruto. Overconfident. You thought I was too broken to fight back, too scared to expose you. But I've been watching, learning, waiting. Just like Yuna. He turns to her, and for the first time, I see something like genuine anger flicker across his face. You're nothing without me, Saki. You were a naive little girl playing at sophistication until I gave you a life you couldn't have dreamed of. And this is how you repay me? By siding with her? I'm not siding with anyone, Saki says, standing now, her posture mirroring mine and yielding, resolute. I'm saving myself, and I'm making sure you can't hurt anyone else. The warehouse feels smaller now, the air charged with the weight of this final confrontation. Outside, the distant wail of sirens begins to grow louder, a subtle reminder that the world beyond these walls is closing in. Haruto hears it too, his head tilts slightly, like a predator sensing danger. You called the police already, he says. Not a question, but a statement, as if he's recalculating his odds one last time. They've been listening? I confirm. Every word you've said tonight has been transmitted to a secure server, backed up in multiple locations, and is already in the hands of the Financial Crimes Unit. You can try to run, Haruto, but there's nowhere left to go. For a moment, he looks like he might try anyway. His eyes dart toward the exit, his body tensing as if preparing to bolt. But then he laughs, a hollow, bitter sound that echoes off the concrete walls. You're both so proud of yourselves, aren't you? The betrayed fiancé and the disillusioned wife, teaming up to take down the big bad wolf. It's almost cinematic. But let me tell you something you haven't considered. He steps closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, as if sharing a secret meant only for us. You think you're exposing me, but all you're doing is exposing yourselves. The world will see you for what you are vengeful. Petty women who couldn't handle rejection. You think the courts will care about your sob stories? They'll see to scorned lovers trying to destroy a successful man out of spite. His words are a calculated strike, designed to plant doubt, to make us question ourselves. But I've spent too many years rebuilding my confidence, my purpose, to let him unravel me now. You're wrong. I say, my voice calm but unyielding. The courts will see evidence. Bank records, audio recordings, witness statements from other victims who've come forward since I started digging. They'll see a pattern of fraud, theft, and manipulation stretching back a decade. And they'll see you for what you are, a coward who preys on trust and calls it strength. The sirens are closer now, their urgency cutting through the night. Haruto's composure cracks just enough for me to see the panic beneath. A man who knows the walls are closing in. You're making a mistake, he says. But the confidence is gone, replaced by something raw and desperate. I can make this right. I can pay back the money, make restitution, whatever you want. Just call this off. It's too late for that, Saki says, and there's a quiet strength in her now. A resolve I haven't seen since we were children dreaming under the stars. You don't get to negotiate your way out of this. Not anymore. The warehouse. Doors burst open, and a flood of light spills in as uniformed officers pour into the space. Their voices sharp and commanding. Haruto Makino, you're under arrest for fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes. He doesn't resist as they cuff him, but his eyes never leave mine. Even as they lead him away, there's a flicker of defiance, a promise that this isn't over. But I know better. For him, it's the end of the line. As the police escort him out, Saki and I stand in silence, watching the red and blue lights flash against the warehouse walls. The adrenaline that's been carrying me through this night begins to fade, leaving a bone-deep exhaustion in its place. Is it over? Saki asks, her voice barely above a whisper. For him, yes, I say. For us, I don't know. She nods, understanding the weight of what we've done. We've dismantled a monster, but the scars he left behind don't vanish with his rest. There's still Maya Ishida to deal with. Still the other victims who need justice. Still the long road of rebuilding what was broken. I meant what I said, Saki says after a moment, about wanting to disappear. I can't stay here. Not after this. Not with everything I've done. I look at her, really look at her. And for the first time, I see not just the woman who betrayed me, but the girl who once promised to be my forever friend. The girl who made a terrible choice, yes, but who also chose to fight back in the end. Where will you go? I ask. I don't know yet. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere I can figure out who I am without all of this. She gestures vaguely at the warehouse, at the city beyond, at the wreckage of her life. I nod, understanding more than I want to. When you're ready, let me know. I can help you start over. New name, new city, new life. I've done it before. Her eyes meet mine, and there's a flicker of gratitude, of something that might have been love in another life. Thank you, Yuna, for everything. Don't thank me yet, I say, but my voice is softer now, less sharp. We still have work to do. The next morning, I'm back in my office. The city sprawling below me as it always does, indifferent to the drama that unfolded in the night. My desk is covered with files evidence for the case against Maya Ishida. Statements from other victims. Plans for restitution funds to help those Haruto and Maya destroyed. My assistant buzzes the intercom. Ms. Asano, your 10 o'clock is here. A Ms. Tanaka from Yokohama. Send her in, I say, straightening my jacket, preparing for another story, another fight. The woman who enters is older than I expected, her face lined with grief, but her eyes burning with determination. I heard you're the one who brought down Haruto Makino, she says without preamble. My sister was one of his victims. I want to know how I can help. I motion for her to sit, and as she does, I feel the weight of this new responsibility settle alongside the others. The fight isn't over, not for me, not for Saki, not for the women whose lives were stolen, but for the first time in years. I feel something like hope. The rain has started again, softer now, a gentle patter against the windows. I think of the girl I used to be, the one who forgot how to cry. Maybe she's still in there somewhere, waiting to be found. Or maybe she's gone forever, replaced by someone stronger, someone who can carry this burden and keep going.